All right, Ivy podcast listeners, thank you so much for tuning into another episode. You are tuning into what is the latest show on the Female Empowerment Series. I am your host, Angela Alberti. Wherever you are tuning in from, we want to take the chance to thank you guys once again for tuning into the show. As we go through the Female Empowerment Series, I really have had the opportunity to sit down and speak with many leaders who also happens to be females across the workforce ecosystem. And that is certainly the case in today's episode. Amy, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Hi there, I am Amy Geiger, Director of Flex Talent Solutions at Marriott International.
Amy, thank you for that. We've had a chance to talk through this episode for what has been a couple of months now, and we're excited. I think we're going to go through a lot, but it would be awesome if you could set the tone on your background, maybe your career timeline, and what's led you up to the role that you're in right now with Marriott.
Yeah, absolutely. And first, thank you so much for having me here today. I really appreciate it, and looking forward to our conversation. I feel like my career has kind of hit a really interesting full circle moment, and I'll explain how that's all kind of come to be, because it has ebbed and changed quite a bit. But going all the way back, I'm just in love with the hotel industry. I fell in love with it as a kid and just became fascinated, particularly with luxury hotels. I think there's just nothing better than walking in and just being like in awe of like a big, beautiful building. And so I knew right away that I wanted to go into luxury hospitality, and in particular into hotels. And so I went to school for that and graduated at the worst possible time, 2009. Not a good time to try to get a job in luxury hospitality, but
Right.
through some perseverance and a stroke of good luck and a very kind hiring manager, I did land at the Ritz-Carlton in Philadelphia, up in the club level, which was cool. I mean, it was just a really fun first job, putting out food and washing dishes and making cocktails and making dinner reservations. What a great first job, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And so I did that for about a year, and then I moved down to Virginia and switched to the Ritz-Carlton in Washington, D.C., and did a tour through the front office, guest services and front desk, and loved it. Spent a couple of years there, but I was the low man on the totem pole when it came to like the managers in the front office. And so my responsibility was 2 overnight shifts a week and 3 day shifts. And even in your young 20s, that kind of schedule on an ongoing basis will get to you.
Yeah.
It's a lot to handle. And so when an opportunity came up for me to go back to a more normal schedule, a 9 to 5, I took it, and it broke my heart, because I knew that I was walking away from what I really wanted to do, and I had made it. I was here, I was at the Ritz-Carlton, but it was okay, because that kind of pivot felt really necessary. I think distance makes the heart grow fonder, right?
Absolutely.
And so I ended up at an international law firm downtown DC, and was running the reception areas and conference center. So catering, special events, security lists. And let me tell you, that is a luxury clientele in and of itself.
Right.
Top attorneys, top clients, confidential information, very similar to what I was dealing with at the front desk at a hotel. So it was very parallel, and I learned a lot and got to experience some new, challenges along hospitality lines. And this is where the story gets really weird. So I got contacted by a company that was right up the road from my house. And at this point, I had been commuting downtown for the better part of a decade. And I was like, ooh, wouldn't it be nice to not have to go to the city? So that is how I actually ended up talking to MBO Partners, was because they were right down the road, and they were looking for people with, customer service skills. And they said, we'll teach you the rest. And so that's how I landed in staffing. And isn't it sort of how it's all sort of always by accident. I love hearing people's stories of how they end up in this industry.
Yeah.
An independent contractor, compliance, learned about taxes, things that I wish I had learned in, high school and college. But the best part about that was that I just got exposure to a lot of different clients and their contingent workforce programs. And you meet a lot of really interesting people. You help people go to work, and suddenly I'm feeling this whole energy around, what it means to send people to go to work, and helping people achieve, something different when they're working as independent contractors and they've stepped away from that like full-time career. So that was very cool. I was at MBO for almost 6 years. Marriott, of course, got hit hard during the pandemic, as many businesses did, and they were rebuilding and doing a lot of hiring. And at the time, the fact that a position would become available that would kind of blend my two worlds of contingent workforce program management and hotel, it felt too good to be true. So I joined Marriott last fall, and now I'm overseeing their Flex Talent Solutions branded contingent labor program. And it just feels like everything kind of came full circle in a weird way.
Yeah, it's melded together from your early days of, working at the hotel as a new kind of broke college student, getting into the hotel industry all the way through MBO and now at Marriott. That's pretty interesting, right? That you've taken. Thank you for sharing that. When we were prepping for this, I thought it was fascinating and truly fascinating in that the way that Marriott has really formed and strategized efforts when it comes to the contingent workforce program. And we hear this trend, and albeit it has many different definitions or what have you, but when it comes to direct sourcing, it can be simply defined as an organization that is internalizing recruitment efforts to maintain a talent pool of contingent talent, right? But that's not necessarily something new from what you guys have been doing at Marriott. Can you dive into that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So the uniqueness of this particular program, the Flex Associates are Marriott associates, and you rely on our internal associates, our existing talent pool to fill positions as they become available. Hiring managers who know people, people who are already working for the organization, who understand that Flex is a perfectly viable option for them if they need to take a pivot in their career, if they want to switch to project-based or assignment-based work, reduce their hours, switch back to FTE. It's all very, it all works and it's accepted, and it's something that's really treasured there. And so the pool of people that have decided to enter into a flex position, typically they don't leave. Typically they find that they really like it and they like the flexibility that it brings. And so we have this really unique dynamic with the fact that just about everyone who's in our flex program today was internally referred. Someone who's already worked for the company previously, boomerangs, people who left and want to return and enter into something new, give a new department a try. When you think about what direct sourcing is at its core, redeployments and re-engagements and working from what you already have, there's nothing quite like it.
And I mean, so when I first heard this, it blew my mind, right? And let's just stop by thinking about this for a second. Your Flex associates are actual associates of the organization, most of which have been brought about. And this isn't like a small to medium-sized business. You guys are with Marriott, I mean, one of the larger hotel chains in the world, but brought about on the basis of referral. So very cool. Also, I geek out about this stuff, so take it for what it's worth. But I'd like to hop into the fact that your contingent project, contract, temporary, interim, whatever it is that you want to call it, that type of flex talent is an actual associate of the organization itself, which really goes against the grain of our conceptualization of staffing in general. But what has that done for the organization from a cultural level, and the advantages that I'm sure it brings?
Oh, there's so many too. One of them is recruitment, and introducing this concept to people outside of the organization. If they are, a friend of a friend, and they say, "Hey, you want to join this program Flex? It's legitimate." And we've got there's two things you really want, right? You want your brand presence, and then you also want it to be something that is enticing and something that people would want to join on for. So because Flex associates are Marriott associates, most of the benefits are the same. You're given the same sort of computer access. You don't have to worry about the fact that, oh, you're a contractor, you can't get access to X, Y, and Z. You can fully integrate with your team 100%. You're invited to all the same events. You are joining for every different, social engagement. And what I think you constantly hear about the risk and the fear of co-employment.
Mhm.
And I think that in many cases, managers are aware of, co-employment risk, and, they're with your team, but they're not really an employee here. So be careful, and this, that, and the other. And so when you eliminate that fear, and that sort of like hesitation of whether or not you should invite them or include them or let them have access to something, when you eliminate that completely because you have them in your head count, or as part of your team, it really frees up a lot of barriers. It gives you a lot of flexibility, and it means that your workers are going to be much more efficient in what they're trying to do. I personally have 5 flex associates on my team.
Yeah.
I am a big practice what you preach kind of person.
Yeah.
And it works great because they sit right alongside, and they're all in those roles for different reasons. One for more flexibility with family, one because it's maybe attempt to hire, we're evaluating business needs. One is joining to cover maternity leave. Like we actually have 6. So we have, and I feel they would not feel like they're any different from anybody else on the team. It's just cohesive. There's no hesitation. And when you get the entire company to sort of buy into that mentality, and everybody feels really good about the Plexus associates sitting right by their side, it creates a really good environment.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very interesting. And I think it's good to hear how much it's taken the advantage of not just the culture of the employees around it, but the people that manage it, and really remove barriers on that front. I can only imagine what sort of advantages come with that. How do y'all delineate what is a flex and what is not a flex, and kind of draw a line in the sand so there's that clear understanding?
Yeah, it's a great question. There is an important factor to making sure that there is sort of there needs to be a distinction, right? You don't want to make it too glaring, and they're not the others or anything like that. But using tactics like making sure that it's on a contract basis, an assignment basis, a start date and an end date. End date can be extended, absolutely, and frequently is, but there's something. It's a start and end, and it's not a salaried engagement in perpetuity. Also using hourly rates. So a contingent worker is being paid for every hour that they work. So if they work a 60-hour week, they're getting paid for every hour that they put in. That's part of the contract assignment, and that's part of the how we make an effort to make sure that they're compensated and they're recording the hours that they're working. And then modification of benefits, it's ever so slight, but just some distinctions, especially for those who are truly part-time. It's a little bit different, but not significantly. And using different timekeeping systems. So we do use a VMS for our contingent workforce, which is different than the timekeeping system that we have for our FTE. So those little nuances, and the way that we communicate, and who they engage with, how they work with some of the different business units, it's a little bit different. Communication's a little different. They know where to find all of their information. Managers know how to get the information they need about how to support these workers. So they're called out frequently as their own population and how they should be engaged. It's very frequently the same. Sometimes it's different.
Yeah. And I think what you guys are doing is really attuned to what embodies many of the strategies aligned to the future of work. It's being honestly, and it's not to just pitch the name of it here, but it really is having a level of that flexibility for a population of your workforce, and having the expectation that that consistency across the board, especially at an organization the size of Marriott, it's not going to be that same sort of process time and time again for every single one of the employees or workers that you have. What do you think are some of the elements that have really helped embody this referral program? And you mentioned one of them, and they are your cheerleaders at the end of the day. So, making sure that it is an attractive model. Are there any other areas that have really helped you guys in building a really strong referral program for new candidates?
Gosh, I mean, we've had a lot of people who have been able to return. I'm going to look at that from a very recent lens, because over time, prior to the pandemic, that program grew sort of slowly and naturally. And what we have seen post-pandemic in a rebuilding mode is that people who left, whether they had to or wanted to or whatever it may be, saw an opportunity, remembered the Flex program and saw an opportunity to rejoin the company in any way, shape, or form. And when there was still a great level of uncertainty, but there was also a significant demand. I mean, travel is out of control right now, which is wonderful, but there's this everlasting sort of like, are we good for a long time? Whatever it may be.
Question mark, right?
Question mark, exactly. And so I think that, you know, people were returning because they remembered their experience working for the organization, or people were willing to join because they knew people who worked here. I think brand is probably the number one recruitment, retention, word of mouth. It's funny, we've done some like referral, like encouraging incentives, et cetera, but it hasn't needed that. We really are just self-direct sourced.
That's fantastic. I can imagine what, you know, when you were at the crux of spending your time at MBO and then looking at this type of program and being like, wow, conceptually so far different from so many other use cases that we've seen or traditionally know to build when it comes to standing up these type of programs. So with that, you know, as I lean from asking you a little bit about the referral program, I'd like to pick your brain on what has been, and I want to say kind of like the boogeyman, right? When it comes to this great resignation and really looking at retention as a different eye and a different lens. Any thoughts on how your retention strategy has benefited or perhaps even improved within your overall headcount, but particularly when it comes to your CWP program?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to note that there's an entire separate world of our Flex Talent Solutions program that is our like vendor managed program and the supplemental workforce that comes in to help support our properties. Those are not Flex associates, they're not Marriott employees, but they're part of our ecosystem. And I think that it would be, you can't talk total talent, you can't talk about the whole ecosystem and the workforce dynamic if you don't talk about what's happening at the properties in addition to that. And so there's a loyalty that goes on with our vendor partners and what the workers that are coming to our properties day in and day out and having to work hard and what makes them want to come back when they have options and they have choices between a lot of different properties, and then also what makes people want to keep coming back on our more HQ based program. I would say it's the way that you treat everyone. The old JW Marriott saying was, how you treat your associates. If we treat our associates well, they're going to treat our customers well. And that has just always been the marching orders, is just to treat everybody very respectfully, kindly, fairly. There's learning and development opportunities. There's travel perks, discounts and things like that, and make you feel, and you just never stop feeling like they're trying to push the envelope forward and caring for everyone kind of across the board when it comes to, no matter what, you're being looked after and you're being cared for. So that is, gosh, it goes back to that whole co-employment boogeyman. Is if you can take a step back from that and you can welcome everyone in and make everyone feel like they belong and that they're here and they can grow and they can develop. One of the programs that they've rolled out with this year is our Become initiative, where one of the options, you kind of figure out who you're meant to be and what kind of stage in your career that you're in. And one of the options is flexible. Are you feeling like you need more flexibility in your life? Are you feeling like you need to be able to work remotely? Are you feeling like you need to be able to cut down on your hours? Are you feeling like you want to be able to learn something new and split your time between different departments? One of the opportunities that being in flex provides is that exactly. You could be an FTE for a very long time and suddenly go, wow, I'd really like to be able to be home with my kids and not log on until 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning. And then I'd like to be done by 3 in the afternoon to go pick them up. And so if you can find a hiring manager that's looking for that amount of work and you can kind of work together, it's totally normal, totally natural to be able to step into that role, become a flex associate, reduce, have that flexible schedule. And that's normal. It's available. I don't think that's done everywhere. I don't think there's a concept of just being able to speak to your organization and say, hi, I'd like to change the way I work. And they go, okay, well, let's see what we can do about that. And I'm not saying it's welcome everywhere, right? Sometimes business needs just can't allow for that. But when you have a general culture of let's take care of you, and yes, let's see what we can do, and there is a way that we can make this work, it's really, really nice. And that happens, not only in our at headquarters, but also at our properties, giving them more flexibility in their hours and their shifts, and that extends to not only our associates, but also to our contractors.
That's so incredible to hear. It's honestly really refreshing because not that I've got decades and decades of experience under my belt, but I've never really heard of that, or being able to adopt that sort of welcoming aspect of understanding the ebbs and flows of your workforce's life and where they're at, and offering them the sense of flexibility. And think about what that can do from a general retainment perspective, and a loyalty perspective, which can all lend itself to a further productivity perspective, and service, and overall service. It almost transcends into various different areas of the makeup of an organization. So pretty cool to hear that. And now, when it comes to the future of work, what are some of the thoughts that you have? Where do you see this workforce really pivoting to 5-10 years from now?
More flexible, more flex,
Yes.
more flex.
Yeah,
I like to tell everybody
absolutely.
how popular we are right now, and it's true. I think that especially as we continue to navigate a few more years of just a general uncertainty of where are we heading? Are we going into some sort of recession? Are we
Mhm.
going to be, what does that look like? I think that the more comfortable that organizations become with utilizing different kinds of talent, doing project-based work with independent consultants who can come in and work on something, or bringing someone on as for a contract or an assignment and going, okay, yeah, no, that was just a pickup in business, and that's truly temporary, or wow, we could use this need for, I don't see this going away, and see if that becomes something more permanent. I think more organizations have seen that they don't want, we're seeing there's layoffs happening. People are feeling uncertain about what kind of work they do. And so I also think that there will be more people who are interested in taking contract assignments or short-term stints, because that's what is happening right now anyway. There's a younger population that only wants to go to work for a company for a year or two, and then they might want to see what else is new. So what's the harm in being on a short-term assignment and seeing if you're a match with the company? It's kind of a two-way street now. You want to also see if you fit and if that's the right dynamic for you, as much as the company wants to make sure that you're a fit with them. And I think, companies that don't adapt to that type of mantra and that type of flexible workforce as a broader part of their total talent perspective are not going to be able to ebb and flow the way that they're going to need to, and that'll be a struggle. I can see it already, though. There's just a buzz in the air, and it's a cool time to be in this industry and talking about these things, because the more that it gets talked about and the more that other organizations see it working, and that gives confidence to workers who want to join in that way, in that capacity. I think it's going to be really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. You're here. I think you touched on all of the major areas from a generational impact to the flexible offering to being able to understand that and implement that within your culture, or else you might be sitting in the dust when it comes to talent pool curation. So awesome thoughts. Amy, as we're wrapping up today's show, I wanted to just ask you your content diet. This is a very important and almost personal question to me, at least, because we're all so busy throughout the day, emails, phone, our family. What do you do to stay up to date on the different happenings that are going on within your realm of the world?
Yeah, so I am, I like a good old NPR, National Public Radio, is sort of my my zen, my peace,
Wow, that's cool.
my level set. That is my calming news source, I would say. That always kind of brings back to ground. I think from a content in the industry and what I'm really enjoying right now, I've been kind of a webinar junkie, and really trying to lean into a different side of the industry. Having been on, I guess you'd call it the supplier side for as long as I was, and being new to this side and this space and kind of seeing everything from a different lens. First of all, there was a lot of, boy, if I had known that then, what I know now, moments. And so what I found is leaning into other avenues, the people who know the technology, the people who know the staffing, the people who are experts at direct sourcing. What are they doing? What are these best practices? That's been sort of, I'm sucking up as much content as I possibly can. And then I hate to say it, but I'm picking up the phone and I'm waving my, hi, I'm new at this flag, and calling a lot of my peers and saying, can you help me? What would you recommend? Here's my story. I love talking to people who understand the business, and I'm a talker by nature. I just want to pick everybody's brain and find out what they're doing and see what they think about what's going on here. So I think most of my content may actually just come from human phone calls, which I know is rare these days, but I'm sure I'm bothering a lot of people and picking their brains. But I think it's great. I think everybody comes from a wealth of information, and that's why these podcasts are great. I've been listening to the Ivy podcast, of course. Yeah. It's helpful to hear real life experiences, but also helpful to be able to ask questions on the other side too.
Of course. I love your answer. You started off with NPR, and then you went right into old school phone calls at the end. I mean, that and everything in between, that's fantastic. Yeah. I have quite a number of siblings who all listen to NPR as well. So again, it took me back to those times. But Amy, thank you so much for your time today. It was awesome to sit with you, and really cool to learn from you and what you guys are doing and what have been doing at Marriott when it comes to the Flex program. I think it was a really interesting conversation and a refreshing take on what we traditionally have connotated to CWP programs. So thank you for that. And thank you for sharing some of your wealth of knowledge. Where can we find you?
Oh, LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Yeah. Amy Geiger, guys. And when we appreciate y'all spending some time with us as part of the very special female empowerment series. Amy, thank you as well for being on the show today.
Thank you, Angela. It's been a pleasure.
All right, guys, we'll see you on the next episode of the Ivy Podcast.